The Nats Chat end-of-season podcast party is from 7 to 9 p.m. on Friday, October 2nd at Walters, the official bar of the Nats Chat podcast. Al, Tim, and I will be there ready to hear your opinions about the Curtis Mead trade and everything else that's happened in the second half of this season. Again, that's Friday, October 2nd from 7 to 9 p.m. at Walters.
Now the set and the 0-2 coming. Swing a hard ground ball. It is fair right over the first base bag. Down the line, headed to the corner. Nunez scores the go-ahead run. Abrams content to jog into second on the double. And the Nationals lead it 3-2. Abrams with his 92nd RBI.
1 ball, 2 strikes. 2 out and nobody on. He's into the windup, the kick, and the pitch. Swing and a miss. He struck him out. Back to the breaking ball. Strikeout number 7 for Cavalli. And a 1-2-3 top half of the 6th inning. Here's the set of the pitch. Swing, and Vivas loops one over the drawn-in infield. Going back is Ritter. Can't get there. Base hit. 1 run is scored. Here comes Young to the plate. He'll score behind Ruiz. Jorbit Vivas drops one into center field. His 3rd hit in the last 3 innings. And the Nationals are in double digits on the scoreboard now. It's Washington 10 and Colorado 2.
The 1-2. Swing a long drive right field for Lile. Back Moniak to the wall, and it is long gone. Up into the second deck, below the scoreboard, a 3-run homer for Dalen Lile. And the Nationals lead it 13-3.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He is at Nationals Park. Nothing, and I mean nothing, cures an ailing offense as well as facing the Colorado Rockies pitching staff, the Washington Nationals. I don't know if they have cured their ailing offense, but they certainly have gotten a respite from the offensive struggles. The Nats' 4-game losing streak is over. The Nats won for just the 7th time in 25 games, a 13-3 blowout of the Colorado Rockies at Nationals Park on Monday evening in Game 1 of a 4-game series. Consider where we just were. The Nats came into this game having just had a 1-8 road trip on which they totaled 20 runs, including just 14 runs over the 8 losses. But the Nats on Monday evening, 13 runs, 13 hits, which were a home run, 4 doubles, and 8 singles, 8 walks, 4 for 13 with runners in scoring position. The Nats were outstanding offensively. They now are 62-71, run differential of plus 20. The Rockies, they now have lost 7 consecutive games, now are an MLB worst 50-81 with a National League worst run differential of minus 146. The Rockies have the worst team ERA in MLB, 5.59. Good to have you with us. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Table to Mat, which you can count on for all of your nutrition and personal training needs. Table to Mat offers virtual and in-person nutrition services and personal training to the DMV area. You can email Table to Mat directly through the website tabletomat.com. That's the word table, the number 2, MAT.com. You could call Table to Mat 240-388-2206. If not for the Nats offense being so good, the headline item from Monday evening would be starting pitcher Cade Cavalli being great again. We'll get to that. Also, C.J. Abrams is back. We'll get to that. But Mark, the nature of this win really is something. The Nats on Monday evening got no hit for 4 innings. You kind of forget that if you watch the game in its entirety, but the Nats got no hit for 4 innings. All 13 of the Nats runs and all 13 of the Nats hits came over the 5th through 8th innings. What a bizarre blowout, but a blowout nonetheless.
Yeah, and so they end up scoring 13 runs in those 4 innings, which matches, or it's actually more than they had scored their previous 60 innings. Yes, that's 6-0. That's how long it had been since they had scored anything of consequence like this. And you're right, for 4 innings, it felt like this is exactly right where they've been for the better part of a week or more. And they flipped a switch. And there may need to be a little bit of credit here given to Cade Cavalli, not because of what he did as a pitcher, but in the dugout. This is uncommon for a starting pitcher to do this. He's actually talking to guys. He said he thought it was about the 3rd or 4th inning, and he was like, hey, we need some more energy. I need to be providing that myself. I'm kind of low energy right now, too. We need to kind of start getting after this again.
It was a little bit low energy to start the game, but we just talked about it, I think, in like the third or the fourth, and we're like, we got to bring the energy, like get it going. And sure enough, in the fifth, it just all kind of like happened. We popped off.
And whether that had anything to do with it or not, they did turn it on after that. And you could sort of feel this. It's been going on for more than a week now, where this team just did not do anything offensively. And it's not just that they didn't score, but they just looked like they had no life. I think we talked about it the other day on the podcast. Well, for 4 innings, it looked like the exact same thing again. And then they did turn it on. And I think at least some credit may go to Cade Cavalli for being a little inspirational, motivational in the dugout. You don't necessarily think that a pitcher is going to motivate the offense to do something. It may have actually happened in this case.
Another sign of the maturation of Cade Cavalli, the leadership of Cade Cavalli. There's also this, too. The Rockies are going to Rocky, and the Rockies did Rocky in this game. The Nats in the bottom of the fifth scored 5 runs, thanks in part to 2 hideous throwing errors by the Rockies. But the Nats in the inning had 3 doubles and 2 singles, and then were off and running. Bottom of the 6th, 3 runs. Bottom of the 7th, 2 runs. Bottom of the 8th, 3 runs. I made the joke on the last installment of the podcast that we need to start differentiating between which Nats team we're referring to when we talk about the 2026 Nats, the team that was rolling offensively or the team that we have been seeing lately. In this game, you had 2 different Nats teams. Like, this game was a microcosm for this Nats offense this season. So bad for the first 4 innings, so good over the final 4 innings. But it was great to see this. The Nats so needed a performance like this. C.J. Abrams is back. I don't know if this is causation or correlation, but Abrams comes back. All of a sudden, the offense looks a whole lot better. Abrams back from a 4-game absence caused by a sprained left ankle. He was the Nats starting DH and number 1 batter. No, he was not at second base, not yet. But 1 for 4 with an RBI double and a walk. He went 2 for 2 on stolen bases. So that ankle was put to the test. Abrams, bottom of the first, a leadoff walk and to steal a second base. Abrams in that Nats 5-run fifth, RBI double down the right field line on an 0-2 pitch for a 3-2 Nats lead, and he had a steal of third base. Good to have Abrams back, and he made some history with what he did in this game. So Abrams now is at 29 home runs and 26 stolen bases, a 25-25 season, just the second 25-25 season for a Nats player since the franchise moved to D.C. The only other 25-25 season, outfielder Alfonso Soriano's 40-40 season in 2006. Soriano in the 2006 regular season, 46 home runs, 41 stolen bases. 20 years later, the Nats finally have another 25-25 player. And you noted this on X. The Nats have had a bunch of 20-20 seasons, but 25-25 seasons actually have been really rare.
Right. And they've had the guys hit the homers. It's been more the speed combination. And yes, let's admit that stolen bases mean a little bit different today than they did back in 2006. It's a little bit easier to rack up stolen bases, but it's still maybe a little surprising to think about the fact that they had not had anybody go 25-25 since Soriano, and there's still a good chunk of the season to go. Abrams should, knock on wood, at least get to 30-30, maybe 35-35. It's probably too late to go 40-40. He would have to really go on a tear the rest of the way and probably start going after stolen bases a little bit more than he normally does. But he's got that combination, of course. And there are very few players this team has ever had who combine that kind of speed and power combo that he does. And I don't want to make too big a deal out of the fact that he was back in the lineup for this game and then they scored 13 runs. But I do think there's a little something to it, just the presence he brings. You put him in the leadoff spot and allows everybody else to be back in a spot that's a little bit more comfortable to them. You have that guy, as we talked about the other day, that other teams do have to fear to some respect when he's in there. He didn't have the biggest game. I mean, he had a nice game. He didn't have the biggest game out of them all. Dalen Lile did, and several others. But I can't help but think that just having him in there again, it's got to bring a little bit of comfort and ease to everybody else who clearly were pressing these last 4 days without him and really going further back since James Wood was hurt. So I want to give some credence to the idea that his return to the lineup helped spark them in this game.
What about where we are when it comes to Abrams playing second base? Now that Abrams is back, the ankle, like I said, was put to the test a good bit in this game. When do you think it's realistic to think that we'll see Abrams finally play second base?
I don't expect it on Tuesday because while he did play in this game, he did DH, he did not take any defensive drills before the game. He did a good amount of running exercise. I think they wanted to make sure that everything was fine in that regard. And you saw he stole a couple bases. Now, if you're watching carefully, he looked good running. He had a little trouble slowing down or I think turning, on the double. So he's not 100% quite yet. They're going to see how he feels, especially in the morning when he wakes up, and make some decisions based on that. I think the hope would be that he can at least do some defensive drills, ideally at second base on Tuesday. Maybe he would DH again to give him that opportunity to focus on that, and then you decide moving forward. But they're not going to force that issue if they don't think he's 100% yet, and I know that's frustrating to everybody involved. But at this point, you better make sure everything is fine before you do this big move. No reason to make it happen just because you initially expected it to happen a lot sooner than now. There's no reason now to force it. You might as well just make sure that he's 100%.
August 14th was when Nats manager Blake Butera told us that the Nats were moving C.J. Abrams from being primarily a shortstop to being primarily a second baseman. 10 days now have passed since that declaration was made. We are still waiting for Abrams to play at second base. He got hurt. We understand that. So that is part of the equation. But you just hope that there isn't more to it than that. I mean, look, he at some point in this work week needs to play second base. Can we say that? Okay, the work week, Monday through Friday. Is it fair to say that at least, that by the end of the work week, C.J. Abrams should be playing second base, assuming that he's healthy?
Yes, and I would say I'll give him one more game at shortstop before I think he has to play second. If he's going to be in the field, if you're limited to DH, okay. But if you're able to play the field, I'll give him one more game at shortstop. And if he's playing a second game in the field sometime this week, I think by then it needs to be at second base.
Yeah, there's something wrong here if he's not playing second base sooner rather than later.
This is sports broadcaster Ben Raby and a longtime listener to the Nats Chat podcast. A while back, I was in the market for a personal trainers, and my ears perked up last season when I heard an ad from show sponsor Table to Mat. Proving the power of advertising, I reached out and eventually began a training program with Chad, and boy, am I ever glad I did. Chad will work with you to devise a personal program. The communication, the flexible scheduling, and the setup at his home gym are all great. I legitimately bounced around trainers and gym programs for years, and I've never had a more productive and enjoyable experience than working with Chad. Do what I did. Visit him online at tabletomat.com. That's table, the number 2, and mat, M-A-T, tabletomat.com. Reach out to Chad. Hear the terrific workout programs he can build for you. Plus, like you, he's a huge Nats fan.
There goes Lile for third. The pitch is high. The throw is airmailed into left field. Lile will score. Sullivan throws a balloon. It's 5-2 Nationals.
Daylen Lile, big game for him. He is the Nats starting left fielder and number 4 batter, 3 for 5 with a 3-run homer, a double, and a 2-run single. A 5-ribby night for Daylen Lile, and he had a stolen base, but Lile in the Nats 3-run 8th, a 3-run homer to right field on a 1-2 pitch to put the Nats up 13-3. The homer going a projected 420 feet per Statcast. He gets his OPS up to 705. We've talked about Daylen Lile and the up and down nature of his season, certainly offensively speaking. Really good to see him have a big game like this. And on a night on which so many Nats players contributed, Daylen Lile was the best. Like, he was the number 1 offensive standout for the Nats in this game.
Yeah, and he needed it. There have been some signs here lately of him starting to put it together. He crushed a ball in Texas last week that went 413 feet and died at the warning track in the deepest part of the park. Didn't have a lot to show for that, but he had a better series in Miami. And he talked about himself just starting to play with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more swagger.
I would say individually just the confidence, and then as a team just for us to finish strong and, just leave our mark and leave people with something to look forward to next year.
And whether there's anything to it or not, he knows that this is right around the time last year that he took off. And if that's what it takes to give you a little bit of confidence to say, okay, late August, I know I've done this before now. I can finish strong even if the team isn't finishing strong because I've done this before. Maybe that's what it takes to get him feeling good and going out there. You saw better swings from him, more confidence, more energy, some smiles on his face that we haven't always seen from him this year. I think he understands the importance of this finish for him on a personal level, even if for the team it's too late to salvage a season. I think he knows that this is an important closing 5 weeks for him.
Yeah, I've asked you, if you are doing an organizational hierarchy of outfielders, James Wood, of course, is number one. Who is number two? And it's really not clear these days who the number two is. Dalen Lile, in theory, could be that guy, but, how he finishes, I think, is going to have a say in that. 7 of the 9 Nats position players who played in this game each had at least one hit, and the 2 guys who went hitless still got on base. Dylan Cruz was the Nats starting right fielder, number 3 batter, went 0 for 2, but he drew 3 walks. Nasim Nunez was the Nats starting shortstop and number 9 batter, 0 for 3, but he drew a walk. But we had 2 Nats players who each had 3 hits. Dalen Lile was one. The other was Jorbit Vivas. A good game for our guy Vivas. He is a Nats starting second baseman and number 8 batter, 3 for 5 with a 2-run single and 2 other singles. I guess Vivas doesn't want CJ Abrams playing second base. Vivas wants that job. I noticed this about Jorbit Vivas, and this may make some people mad, but I'm going to say this anyway. Do you know his on-base percentage is .324? For all of the grief that our friend Jorbit Vivas takes, and we understand the grief, right? He's not some long-term piece. The overall offensive stats are, shall we say, underwhelming. But we just talked about Dalen Lile. Dalen Lyle's on-base percentage is .294. Vivas is 30 points better. I feel like we should acknowledge that. We've talked about, Cade Ruiz has had this step-forward season. His on base is .323. Vivas, again, .324. Luis Garcia Jr., for all the good that he did with the Nats before they traded him, .313 on base. Vivas at .324. So, you know what? He's taken a lot of insults, Vivas has, so I feel like we should salute him. From at least an on-base percentage standpoint, he has been halfway decent.
This has always been the book on him, is that what he brings to the table more than anything else is a good eye at the plate. And well, .324 is not anything to really write home about compared to what his batting average is. That does stand out. And on this team, it's better than a number of players, as you just outlined. I think the biggest issue is that .324 on base percentage is higher than his slugging percentage. So when he does make contact, there is very little power involved in it at all. And you just would hope for more than that. But a good night for him, 3 hits in 3 innings, a couple RBI for him. And the bottom of the lineup kind of sparked everything in this game. It was the 5th inning. They've done nothing to this point. Jacob Young, leadoff single off the shortstop's glove. Vivas follows with a single. Nasim Nunez, the bunt that then turned into a catastrophe for the Rockies from a defensive standpoint.
Here's the set for Feltner. Nunez squares, and he bunts it toward the third baseman. It'll be picked up by Castro. He'll throw to first quickly. It's low, and it's by the second baseman and down the line. Young will score. Vivas rounding third, trying to score.
That's what got it all going. Then they started hitting doubles once they turned the lineup over. But if you said, who actually sparked this team when they had nothing going on for 4 innings, it was the bottom 3 guys in the lineup, Young, Vivas, Nunez, that got that rally started in the 5th.
And you wonder what could be coming from an offensive standpoint in this series. Again, the Rockies pitching is really bad. The Nats put up 13 runs in game 1, 3 more games to go in this 4-game series. So the Nats starting pitcher for this 13-3 win over the Rockies at Nationals Park on Monday evening was Cade Cavalli. He has been on some run. We've been talking all about it, and the surge continues. Cavalli, again, was great. 2 runs, 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk. He gave up 5 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 2 singles. He threw a lot of strikes, 93 pitches, 64 strikes, 29 balls. I feel like the last 7, 8, 9 Cavalli outings, it's like copy and paste the basic numbers he puts forth, because I feel like we're saying the same numbers more or less, start in and start out. That's how consistently great he has been. The 2 nits to pick in this game would be the home runs. Top of the 4th, gave up a leadoff first pitch homer by Willie Castro to right field for a 1-0 Rockies lead. Top of the 5th, gave up a leadoff homer by Ezekiel Tovar to center field for a 2-0 Rockies lead. The homer went a projected 416 feet per StatCast, although center fielder Jacob Young made some effort to try to catch that ball, climbed the wall, and for a moment, it looked like he might have actually reached over the wall and made the catch. Did you think for a split second maybe that Young made the catch? Because I kind of did. I was like, whoa, did he just catch that?
Swing a drive straightaway center and deep. Young broke in, now moving back to the warning track, climbing the wall. He reaches, can't get it. It's gone.
He didn't, but man, he made that play really interesting.
From the perspective high up behind the plate, which is where the press box is and where the camera is that you're watching the game on TV, it did look like he came pretty close. I never saw a good side angle on it. I don't think it was nearly as close as it appeared to be, but it was another great effort. And when he makes a catch like he did in Miami over the weekend, you just start assuming anytime he leaps at the fence, he's going to haul it in. That's how good he is and the reputation that he's established. I don't think it was actually that close, but it was great to watch that kind of effort from him and think, oh, maybe there's a chance he just did it again.
Yeah, if you watch or listen to the Rockies TV call of that home run, the Rockies announcers thought that Young came close to making the catch. It was pretty funny.
And that ball's tagged to deep center field. Tovar has hit it out.
Oh my God, he almost caught that.
Dead center field. You always hold your breath because of Jacob Young. He hit a breaking ball 400 plus feet.
Let's see how close Jacob Young was. He was late. He was late. If he had gotten there earlier, he would have been there.
But yeah, Cade Cavalli. So here's what we're looking at now. 28 games, all starts. The ERA is at 3.21. The whip is down to 1.21. The strikeouts per 9 innings at 10.23. He now is at 169 strikeouts, so he is very much within range of a 200 strikeout season. And the Nats put out this stat. Cavalli has allowed 3 earned runs or less in 26 of the 28 starts. Those 26 starts, the most such starts for a pitcher in this regular season. It is not just how good he has been, but it is the consistency that he is displaying. We have talked about this. I don't know that you can say anything other than Cade Cavalli is having an outstanding season at this point. It has gone from like a nice season to now, you're really starting to say to yourself, how good are these numbers going to end up being? And how special of a season might this end up being? Like, he's right now flirting with having one of these kind of years that we got used to, 2012 through 2019, like the kind of a season that we would, get from, say, a Steven Strasburg or a Jordan Zimmerman. I don't want to go as far as Max Scherzer, but to me, he's in that like Strasburg-Zimmerman territory of some of the seasons those guys had in terms of the numbers that Cavalli is putting up right now.
Barring a collapse over the last 5 weeks of the season, God forbid that happens, it will be the best season by a Nationals pitcher since 2019. I don't think there's anything comes close to that. That's how good he has been. And the consistency, 9 consecutive quality starts. You mentioned how many times he's given up 3 runs or less, the strikeout numbers. Here's what I think actually is the number that's most impressive, and I don't think we make a big enough deal out of this. He's up to 148 2/3 innings. Okay, let's remember the injury history, the lack of big league experience for him, and he has made 28 starts leading the league and is at 148 2/3 innings with probably 5 starts to go or so. That is huge for him. If he can get, let's say, if he can get 6 innings per start, that's another 30. That gets him up to like 178 on the season. Even if it comes a little short of that, anywhere in the 170s, that is such a success. And then you add a low 3 ERA, potentially 200 strikeouts and everything else. It makes a phenomenal season. But if I just told you on opening day, Cade Cavalli is going to give them 170 plus innings this year, and I didn't even mention what his ERA or strikeouts or anything else, you would have been thrilled with that alone. And so I think that's the number one most important thing. And then the performance on top of it has taken it to another level.
Yeah, just a giant step forward season for Cade Cavalli. So good to see.
2 outs, bases empty. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Bird to the belt. And now the pitch. Swinging a fly ball right center field. Dylan Cruz on his horse, racing back to the warning track in front of the wall. Makes the catch. And the Nationals win it 13-3. Cade Cavalli has his 12th win. He went the first 6 innings. And the Nationals, after being no hit for the first 4 innings, bust out for 13 runs on 13 hits over the final 4 innings. And the Nationals get a win in Game 1 of this 4-game series against the Rockies, and they win it in a rout.
The Nats relief pitching in this game was good. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run in 3 innings. Erik Tolman, a scoreless and hitless top of the 7th. Now, Clayton Beeter did struggle. He allowed 1 run in 1 inning. Top of the 8th, allowed a run on 2 singles, a walk, a hit by pitch, and a wild pitch. But Jake Bird tossed a perfect top of the 9th. Why was Beeter pitching in this game? That was almost like mop-up duty. We view Beeter as one of the Nats' better relievers. I know that's not saying a ton, but what do you think the thought process was there in having Beeter in the game at that point?
So I don't know if they showed it on TV or not. He was actually warming up in the 6th inning when Cavalli went back out there right as the Nats had taken the 5-0 lead. And so at that point, it's a closer game, and they weren't entirely sure if Cavalli was starting to approach 100 pitches. Would they let him finish the inning if he got into a jam or not? And we've seen that Blake Butera is starting to use Beeter and Ribalta a little earlier in games, especially if they have a lead, not wanting to maybe not get the chance to use his 2 best guys. So I think he had him warming in the 6th. Then Cavalli was fantastic, of course, 1, 2, 3. Then they start piling on, and now they've got a big lead. Well, by the time you get to the 8th, you figure he's already warmed up. Let's get him in the game anyways, instead of shutting him down. It's almost like he got hot, but he didn't get used in the game. That kind of counts in some ways as having pitched. So I think that's probably what it was more than what the score was at the time. Now, I will say this. Clayton Beeter last several outings have been quite a bit shaky. And we've talked about how once it goes south for him, he has a hard time getting it back. He got out of it with only the 1 run allowed, but he was teetering there. And, even though they're up by a bunch of runs by that point in the 8th inning, that's a spot that you've got to come in and lock down a little better than that. And the fact that they had to consider even pulling him in the 8th was not a great sign. So a rough outing for him. I feel like he's had a few of these now. And he's got to start to learn how to throw strikes, number 1, but how to remain effective even if he gets himself into a jam. I think that's been his biggest issue. And it's probably ultimately what may be his biggest issue of becoming a true closer in the big leagues. You need somebody who can get themselves out of a jam. It can't just be first sign of trouble. That's it. It's over.
No, that was ugly. There's no question about that. But the Nats did get the win. Game 2 for the Nats against the Rockies at Nationals Park Tuesday evening at 6:45. The Nats have listed Andrew Alvarez as their probable starting pitcher for the game. We, on the last installment of the podcast, talked about why the Nats haven't yet called up shortstop Seaver King from AAA Rochester. And we got multiple emails about this, and I think this is a key point, and I want to credit the gentlemen who wrote us these emails, Robert Loeb and Jim Beal, and each guy essentially made the same point, which is with the fear of a work stoppage, maybe the Nats are reluctant to have Seaver King on the 40-man roster because you are not allowed to be in contact with players on the 40-man roster during a work stoppage. What do you think about that as a potential reason for why the Nats haven't yet called up Seaver King from AAA Rochester?
So I have been hearing this all summer, not just in relation to King, but Yo-Yo Morales and some others, and there may be some credence to that. However, they haven't hesitated to call up some other guys who weren't on the 40-man roster, especially pitchers. And so I don't know that that's necessarily the driving factor in all this. I really think it just needs to be, do they believe he's ready or not? If you believe that Seaver King is going to be competing for the starting shortstop's job next year, and I think the move of C.J. Abrams would kind of confirm that they believe that it's at least a possibility for next year, then I don't think you're worried about whether or not you're putting him on the 40-man yet. I know everybody has doom and gloom about the lockout, and maybe it does turn out to be really that bad. But most people I've talked to within the sport do believe that as frustrating as the winter is going to be, it's not going to cost them big league games, or if it does, a very minimal amount of games. They're going to play something close to, if not a full 162, which means they will have a 3-week spring training, whatever that might be in late March to get themselves ready. So I don't know that this whole fear of, not putting somebody on the 40-man roster for fear of the lockout, that's the overriding factor. I think it's more about readiness and whether they believe that if they made that move today, that they would make him their starting shortstop for the rest of the year. I think we're going to see him before the year is over. It may not happen yet. I do think we'll see him here at some point. And I get it, and I don't want to completely discount it because I have heard this theory from several people over the course of the summer. But I think if they do believe in the player, they want to see them, and I don't think they're going to let that 40-man issue and potential lockout issue impact that decision whether to call up a guy now or not.
I think, if there is a work stoppage, it eats up the offseason. It eats up little, if any, of the regular season. I think we're both on the same page regarding that. There's too much money being made for them to actually burn a significant number of regular season games. And even if the regular season starts later than it is supposed to start, they will make up those games, as was the case in 2022. There's a lot of bluster, a lot of huffing and puffing. Ultimately, I don't think either side is willing to actually miss regular season games. There's just too much money being made. But regarding the offseason, I do think this is a key point. So the actual expiration of the CBA is at 11:59 p.m. Eastern on December 1st. It's not like the World Series ends and the CBA expires. The World Series ends, and then there's like a month plus until the expiration of the CBA. So even if there is going to be a work stoppage, if you have a player on your 40-man roster and you want him doing certain things in the offseason, you can be in contact with him for a month plus from the end of the World Series until the expiration of the CBA. And, in the case of the Nats, they're probably not going to be in the World Series, okay? So their offseason will be multiple months old until the CBA expires. So you'll have multiple months with which you can work with a player. You can give him an offseason plan. Say, hey, Seaver, if there is a work stoppage, here's a one sheet of some things we want you to do. Maybe even give him some names of some people to talk to. Oh, they don't work for us, but, they're sort of team approved. There are all kinds of things you can do as an organization. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. It's not like the season ends and the CBA expires the next day. There is a little bit of cushion here. And so you can still have maybe not a proper offseason, but you can give guys proper instruction for their offseasons.
Correct. I think it's a great point. And I think we're going to have plenty of time to discuss this when the season's over and we're trying to come up with things to talk about. But I think there's going to be a fascinating stretch there in November. After the World Series is over, there are going to be roster moves and transactions made, decisions that have to be made, maybe some trades, maybe some free agency. We saw last time around, teams did make a few moves before that December 1st deadline, really right up into it, recognizing it might be worth trying to jump the gun on that and lock up some things before that hits, because once it's over, it could be a mad scramble over like a 3-week period before opening day, whenever that is. So if you're the Nationals, I will be really interested to see how they spend that November in terms of any roster moves they do make, adding guys to the 40-man roster, any trades they might be involved in, even any free agent signings. I would hope that this front office, as forward-thinking, as creative as they are, might try to use that to their advantage and not just sit back and say, well, we're not going to do anything. We'll wait till the lockout is over. There may be an opportunity to get ahead of the curve on some stuff. And if they're smart about it, I think they should and will do that.
Yeah, exploit some market inefficiencies. Absolutely. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Table to Mat, which you can count on for all of your nutrition and personal training needs. Table to Mat offers virtual and in-person nutrition services and personal training to the DMV area. You can email Table to Mat directly through the website, tabletomat.com. That's the word table, the number 2, MAT.com. You could call Table to Mat at 240-388-2206. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast.
The 1-0, Glasser's running. The pitch outside, throw to second. Coming home, King, the throw back to the plate, not in time. King dives in with a steal of home, and the Wings have tied the game at 1.